needed to happen, we quickly ran through the other patients, but I couldn't focus. It started to become clear to me that this patient needed urgent surgery, but we still didn't know what had caused the bleed and what would be under the hematoma if we went exploring. Plus, there was the issue of the 33-week-old baby and whether we delivered the baby first, and if we didn't, how we would position the patient on her belly for the surgery. These considerations raced in my head as we started to round. We went to her room first, and by now she was drowsier, vomiting, and barely able to keep her eyes open. A crowd of nurses had formed at her bedside, which, as my instinct told me, was a bad omen. I had seen enough cases like this one during residency to know that by the time the patient declines, it's usually too late. We needed to act early. I made the decision to take her to surgery first and deliver the baby after our surgery. I feared she wouldn't last through a C-section, even if we placed an external ventricular drain first. The obstetrics team deferred to us, saying that the baby was in no harm. She rolled down to the OR in good time, and the team acted with haste. We flipped her over easily, she being so young and early term that her belly was still barely starting to show. As I started to position her head, I caught the obstetric nurses wheeling in an incubator in the corner of the room, and I caught a brief blip of emotion, but I choked down quickly and resumed shaving her head methodically. The surgery to remove the bone was relatively straightforward. I came down to the hematoma, and it was like a rock sitting on the back of her brainstem. I knew I couldn't just suck it out with a sucker, because God knows what would erupt underneath if I did. I started to dissect out the vertebral arteries, which would provide control if something bled, but I couldn't get very far. I kept tiptoeing around the blood clot, trying to dissect it out carefully, like a tumor. I remember thinking to myself, I don't have the courage to just rip this thing out and deal with whatever's underneath. But I remember that I had done the job of decompressing her bone, and I caught sight of that empty incubator, waiting patiently in the corner. I knew that just having done this and getting her flipped over safely to deliver the baby were what we were here for. I knew somehow that these things were far more important than my lack of courage to dissect out the vertebral artery, or to get as far in the surgery as I would have liked, or even hoped for myself and for my standing as an almost graduated chief. The attending came in, and it took less than 10 minutes for him to find everything neatly and take out the hematoma. There was nothing underneath, no MBM, no aneurysm. I closed quickly, and we flipped her over, and the obstetrics team delivered a healthy baby girl in the BNI OR. I had never seen a baby born in the BNI OR, and I grew emotional thinking of all that had been done to do all this safely and in good time. I used to think that courage meant standing on one side of a chasm and taking a leap to the other side. And in neurosurgery, that meant making bold moves, doing dangerous things without regard to fear, and taking risks. But sometime before, during, or after that case, my view of courage and what you learned during chief year changed. I'm not saying that I demonstrated courage in that case, or that I have gained it at any point. Only that my view of it has changed, and that courage isn't a single act, but something deeper and something worth chasing for the rest of your life, rather than something you check off during residency. I'm saying that courage is a process. It's a strength and a willingness to stand up to fear and uncertainty. And you don't stand up to it by trying to be bold or acting brave, because that's just being foolish. Standing up to fear can take many forms. Maybe it's understanding it or coming back to it. Maybe it's not losing sight of the incubator in the corner of the room and not letting fear tempt you into pompousness or blundering or trying to make a big move. I've come to learn that courage takes many forms, and I'm grateful for all of them. It's standing by your family, raising 2 kids, and building a life after tragedy, like my dad did. It's giving a young resident with no pedigree a spot in the best residency program in the world, like Dr. Ponce, Dr. Lawton, and all of my attendings did. It's showing up to work and lead the program, like each of my co-chiefs did. It's having the gumption to stand by me and raise our family throughout all the turbulence of residency, like my wife Emily has done. In closing, I look to all the residents and your families, and I wish you some form of courage that I now know takes many forms, and which will evolve and change for all of you during residency. So long as you remain committed to standing up to fear or whatever else, again and again, You will succeed in residency and in neurosurgery. To the new chiefs and to the new interns, all eyes and attention are now on you. And I want you to know that however you choose to stand up to fear or uncertainty in the OR or without, I will be rooting for you from afar. Thank you.
Looking at Michael and Noah and remembering when we were here for the graduation before we started, and I know to you it seems like you're a million miles away, but we're really not. It's around the corner. I was leaving, so yesterday we had the opportunity to have lunch with Dr. Hadley, and our class all drove back to the BNI together afterwards. And then we went our separate ways, and as I was driving out, I kind of pulled over on that road after you pull out the garage and was looking in the rearview mirror, and it was a very weird feeling to see the Spetzer Tower in the rearview mirror and know that's probably the last time, or it will be the last time I leave that building as a resident. You know, my trunk was full of my lead, loops, all sorts of stuff from my office, and I kind of had this period where I just sat there on the side of the road and thought about it. And we have a lot of moments in the rearview mirror to get here, all of us have. But I think residency is very different than graduating from medical school or college or high school, or really anything else that we've done up to this point. In residency, you change in ways you really can't predict before you start. You face a lot of adversity and stress in ways that you really can't imagine before you start. You see a lot of unfairness in the world, in the emergency departments, in the people who get diagnoses. We always say it's like the best people in the world who get the worst diseases. And I couldn't help but wonder at one point, is this it? Is this the sort of pinnacle of your neurosurgical career? And we hear that time and time again from faculty here, from visiting professors, from people who've never been at the BNI. Your chief year at the BNI will be the best year you've ever had in neurosurgery, and it will never be matched. So I thought about that for a while on the side of the road, and I wanted to use this brief time up here to speak mostly to the residents and to really push back on that idea, because I really don't like that idea. I think that's a really defeatist mentality, and I think all of us should try to use this experience here not as a thing to reminisce on like the good old days, but really as a platform for going forward and doing new stuff. The BNI really, what's great about the BNI is it gives you the opportunity to do things in your career. It's not just time fitting. I think it's too special a place for just a place to remember in the past. Yesterday Czar talked about conquerors in his speech. I love that, by the way. I think that's a great mentality for everybody to leave here with. There's a lot of challenges in neurosurgery that, are yet to be conquered. And maybe they won't be, but I think the right mentality is to go out with the attitude that they need to at least be attempted. And there's no better place in the country, I think, to launch from than here. We see challenging pathologies across every different subspecialty. We get to see the evolving landscape of healthcare in a way that I think is really unique, being in the practice settings that we are here. We get to see the challenges with inadequate healthcare and the repeat patients we see in the emergency room time and time again. Oftentimes, really what they need is like a social work consult, but as a result, they just end up here over and over and over again. And then we see the unsung heroes, oftentimes nurses in the ER, that are dealing with this selflessly over and over and over again. And as residents, we're afforded the opportunity to operate independently in a way that I think is becoming less and less common. And I know all of us are super grateful for that. And I think, unlike so much of neurosurgery, the Barrow is really not an elitist place. The metric for success here is harder to define than most institutions. It's not just the metric of how many papers you've published or how many cases you've done or other number of things like that. Those are other people's games. We don't have to play them. Your success here is measured by how you want to define it. Do research that matters to you, that you think is important to the world of neurosurgery, or do other stuff, write, teach, spend time outside of neurosurgery and use it to make yourself a better doctor. And I think there's a lot of different ways to make improvements in the lives of patients, and the Barrow enables you to do that. One thing I always thought was interesting this year is getting to talk to Carol and some of the other nurses about who like the legendary residents have been at the Barrow in the last decade. And there's a lot of them, and they're all great technicians, great clinicians, But most importantly, all of them have been really good people. I think that's the one thing that you could probably get away with not being good at something, but you can't be a bad person. Every single resident that nurses talk about have been great people. And I got to, Dr. Chang introduced me to somebody who will be joining next year. We all get to stand on the shoulders of giants here at the BNI, and I'm looking at Jay, literally, but also figuratively. There's a lot of people here who've made this place what it is, and it's an amazing honor to be able to be part of that. I can't put into words my gratitude to our attendings for the trust and patience they have in teaching us. This job is stressful enough without having to teach and to really put your faith in residents. The more you get into residency, especially as a chief, the more you realize how hard that is and how much effort goes into it, and we are really appreciative of all of that. We also stand on the shoulders of the residents here, and this year we've been super lucky to have an incredible group of residents, starting with the interns Gabrielle, Gunther, Ben Rodriguez, and Sarah, and then Stefan, Anthony Piscopo, Ben Reeves, and Alex and Gary. All of them made our lives easy. Really, this has not been, rounding with you guys has been easy this year. And we're also really appreciative for all the hard work that you put in this year. The seniors also have stepped up time and again, doing cases at night, doing cases we didn't want to do, doing cases they didn't want to do, and even if they're unglamorous. Sam even came emergently to my house to watch my son while my daughter was being born without a hint of hesitation. He was there for a while. We've also had a really great year with the fellows. I got to know Mike Yang really well, and I'm super appreciative of Mike and Davis and of all the fellows we've got to learn from. I think you really couldn't have asked for more than the people we work with. And then most importantly, I'd like to thank my family. My parents and my aunt and uncle are here. They've been really instrumental in getting me here. The number of personal statements over the last 10 years they've read is I don't even want to admit. It's like draft 57. They all set a really high bar, but they're also willing to offer a helping hand and keep reaching. And then last but not least, to my wife and kids. My wife Tram is an orthopedic surgeon. She's done a trauma surgery fellowship, including a pediatric orthopedic surgery fellowship this year. So she's also been through this as well. And yet, she still manages to find time to deal with all the baggage that I bring home from work. Like Joelle mentioned, you bring home, and Mark mentioned, you bring home a lot. Bad outcomes, just emotional exhaustion, frustration, everything. She's had to manage all of that along with all the things she's dealing with at work as well. On top of that, she's been enduring a lot of nights alone now with 2 kids while I'm in the operating room. And if you leave me alone with 2 kids, there's no chance I could have lasted, no way. I joked with the juniors earlier this year, I would take a week of Q1 junior call over having a sick child at home. It's so much easier. Yeah. And most importantly, she's just been a steady hand throughout all of this. She doesn't get caught up in all the glitz and glamour and ego and all of the things that come with, surgery of all specialties. It really doesn't affect her at all. So having that is invaluable. We're both super excited to continue along in Salt Lake City next year with the BNI graduate. And even though residency may be in the rearview mirror, I think the BNI itself will continue to be the motor that propels us and all of us throughout our whole careers. Thank you.
So everybody heard my 30-minute sermon yesterday, so I promise no more homework for this one. I'm going to do something that I hadn't really seen here and I said in prior BNI graduations. I'm going to dedicate my residency and my entire career to something specific. I want to start by sharing the legend behind Albert Durer's famous praying hands, which was painted in 1509 and is one of the most widely used depictions of prayer in the Western world. The story has it that he and his brother Albert were both promising artists and wanted to attend the Nuremberg Academy of Art. They lacked the funds to do so, So I tossed a coin to decide which one would get to go to the academy and which one would go on in the mines and work for 4 years to fund the other one. Albert won the toss, and the plan was that after 4 years, he would use the proceeds from his art to fund his brother's training. After those 4 years, excuse me, Albert excelled and became the master painter he dreamed of becoming. During those 4 years in the mine, however, his brother's hands became so badly damaged that he developed arthritis and was no longer able to paint. Legend has it that Albert was so overwhelmed with gratitude that he painted his brother's hands as his way of saying thank you. Now that painting is one of the most widely used images in the world. I just learned that Andy Warhol has it on his own tombstone, and Justin Bieber has it tattooed on his leg. When I told Mel that I was applying to scholarships to go study in England, she said, "I don't care what it takes, I'm going to drop out of college and I'm coming with you." While we were there, we developed a master plan where she would come back and finish nursing school while I completed my PhD. 1 month after we created this plan, we found that she was pregnant. Fast forward to PGY3, when we found ourselves in a bit of a pickle. The pandemic and inflation had hit Phoenix hard, and every month we were spending about $1,500 over our income. Mel applied for a normal desk job, and the day of her interview, she got a call from the kids' school that she had to immediately come pick them up due to a COVID exposure. She realized that she couldn't do a normal job, so she did something for which I will be eternally grateful. She became a maid. She went around Willow putting up flyers saying that she cleaned houses. Within a month, she had about 6 clients, and with that work, she was able to put our whole family on her backs and has carried us financially throughout residency. I'm so freaking proud of you for doing this, and I'm so proud that the kids got to grow up watching you do that. I'll never be able to pay you back for having to pick up black, thick, curly hairs from Joe Bonatello's bathroom. But I promised that I will spend the rest of my life trying to. During our time here, Dr. Little created a leadership curriculum for the residents. One part of the curriculum had to do with goal setting and finding your own definition of success. I'd like to share 2 examples that he gave us with you today. The first is from John Wooden, the legendary basketball coach that led UCLA to 10 NCAA championships. He said, "I define success as peace of mind, which can be attained only through the self-satisfaction of knowing you made the efforts to become the best at which you were capable of. Peace of mind through self-satisfaction, knowing that you did your best." I just love that. The second is from Stanford professor and businessman Jim Collins. He wrote, "Success in the end for me is that my spouse likes and respects me even more as the years go by. And I hope by that measure to be as successful as she is." Mel, thank you for pushing me to work on always maintaining the humanistic side of medicine. The things that make you proud of me will never make it onto my CV. And without your constant reminder of what the most important parts of being a doctor are, my priorities would gradually drift in a suboptimal direction. 10 days from now, you and I will be in Japan celebrating our 22nd anniversary. I am who I am today because of you. I've said this to you before, but I'll say it again today. If heaven consists of nothing more than you and me talking in my 86 Buick in an Albertsons parking lot for all eternity, I'd sign up for that in a heartbeat. Para mi familia, gracias por venir a mi graduación. Cada uno de ustedes me ha ayudado a realizar un sueño y me da mucha felicidad que están aquí. Tú eres el mejor ejemplo que he tenido en toda mi vida de sacrificio y amor. Mamá, tú siempre has creído que yo soy el mejor niño del mundo. Si yo pudiera ser como tú me ves, encontraría el cura de cáncer y lograría paz mundial. Espero que sepas que todo lo que tengo lo he logrado porque tú y John creyeron en mí. To our unsung hero, Geraldine, thank you so much for everything you do. We put tonight together and it has been absolutely beautiful. You've kept us all afloat throughout this chaotic thing that we call residency. And me personally, you've reached out when you know I've had a hard day, just to make sure I'm doing okay. To my attendings, thank you for your trust and for your patience during my training. You have pushed me to exceed my own expectations of myself, And your examples have provided me with a blueprint on how to build a clinical program, how to own every aspect of that program, and how to make it the very best. Finally, to my kids, people have been telling me for 12 years that they don't know how I made through PhD, medical school, and residency with kids. I can honestly look at those people in the eye and tell them that I don't know how they've made it through this training without kids. You guys are my power source. You recharge me every day with your energy and your love. Like I said yesterday, you can be anything you want in this world, as long as you believe you can. I've said this to you before and I'll say it again. Don't marry anyone unless they are literally your best friend. And once you find that best friend, commit yourself to make them proud of you in everything that you do. Thank you.
That was magnificent. I'm supposed to give closing remarks, but I don't want to say anything because what you just said was so powerful, so moving. I think the feeling that we all have in this room is just indescribable. It's beyond words. I charge each and every one of you not to get up here and just thank people, but to say something meaningful to make this your exclamation point on the residency, and you've exceeded everything I coached you to do. So thank you so much for that. I do want to take my family privilege to just say a few remarks about Carol, since this may be the last time that we can honor Carol. I don't have much prepared, but I think in the when you talk about surgeons around the world, some of the famous surgeons, Yassergill had his wife as his scrub, and everybody knew about Diane Yassergill. Carol, you're sort of right there with her, and I've known you for 35 years. You were there when I walked in the door as a junior resident. You were there all those years before me for Robert. You were there for Mark. Like I think Joelle said in her description of the Trailblazer Award, you've seen it all. You built the B&I. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that being a surgeon in the OR is stressful and it's hard. And when you have somebody riding with you that is confident, knows exactly what you want, who speaks your language, who knows and can predict and anticipate, it's life-changing, not only for the surgeon, but for the patient. And I know that when I operate with you, I'm a better surgeon. And I think all of us in this room can say that about you. Sometimes I curse you because you've spoiled me. I've gotten so used to how good you are that anyone who follows you makes it hard for me to be tolerant. And, but everything else is fantastic. And I wanted to ask Joelle, can you ask her to keep working since she was maybe you can get her to stay a little bit longer. Well, those are my closing remarks. But again, the room is filled with love and pride. And you guys, you four chiefs, are just so special to all of us. This is going to be a sad morning tomorrow to wake up and know that it's over. But on behalf of all of the faculty, all of the B&I, congratulations. We're so proud and Godspeed. We had such good time that I think the bar might be open for 15 minutes longer.